go ahead and jump right in here. Still tracking the storm, looking at some of the latest data, still pretty much on track as far as the forecast. Not a whole lot of changes, maybe a little bit less icing. That remains to be seen, as just the exact timing between when we transition to snow to sleet and when we transition from sleet to snow or freezing rain. That's what we're still trying to hone in on, and details and models have been all over the place on this. So that's our guidance, and that doesn't help when your guidance is off. So yeah, let's jump into those details. Again, we are still looking at the timing being what it was expected to be, Saturday evening through Tuesday morning. We are going to anticipate icy travel, especially or maybe tonight, I should say. So we're going to start to get that initial burst of sleet and snow. That's going to go down on the roads, maybe some of it melting and some of it accumulating. That's going to be not fun to drive in. So hazardous travel starts tonight through the overnight as we get the sleet. And then as we go into the day tomorrow, of course, that transitions more to a freezing rain event. And that's what we're really concerned about when we start losing power. We start seeing trees coming down, infrastructure damage, things like that. That's anticipated into the day tomorrow. As our chief meteorologist, Tim Buckley, posted on X saying, today is not the day we lose power. That potential would be into the day tomorrow when we start getting ice on those trees, weighing the trees down, and then potentially seeing power outages from there. And I think expected to see power outages. The other part of the double blade, if you will, is the cold. So as we go into Tuesday morning, we're going to see temperatures fall likely into the single digits. Wind chill could be below zero. And then I think another thing to add on here layer-wise is as we go into Monday, we're going to have to watch out for gusty winds, potentially up to 30 miles an hour. Keep in mind, we'll have ice on trees and power lines. We start blowing those around with all that weight on it. We might see power outages go up a little bit as we go into Monday because of that. So keep that in mind. Protect your pipes. Make sure those cabinets are open for your sinks. Get a hot drip going as far away from your water heater as possible, and a cold drip going on any of your sinks. And keep that going. I went ahead and did that in my apartment before I left. I set the heat up as the apartment instructed me to do. So make sure you're doing all those housekeeping items because time is running out as we get closer and closer to the system. Let's break down the timing today. Again, we're still anticipating that snow sleet to start right around maybe 6, 7, 8 o'clock. Could be a lot later too, depending on how much dry air we overcome, how much moisture we get in, how bullish and how much the moisture kind of pushes in as we go towards the evening hours. That'll be something to watch. And again, that's going to be, we're starting to see those slick roads as we go from about 7 to 11 o'clock. So the sleet will continue through the overnight hours. And so, yes, that could be something that we could deal with, and not necessarily a good thing to deal with for sure as we go through the overnight. Now, the day tomorrow, that's a different. Tomorrow is going to be hazardous here, and I will pull that planner up for you as well. Just don't travel on the day tomorrow. Travel extremely discouraged. In fact, just don't do it. We're going to have icy mess around. We're going to have freezing rain. We're going to have sleet towards the morning, transitioning to freezing rain, freezing drizzle, freezing rain. It's awful. As we start going towards the afternoon, you see the power risk on there. That's when we're starting to expect the power failure because trees coming down onto power lines weighted down by that, them coming down by themselves. Really, it's more the trees being weighted down and then falling onto the power lines. I think that could cause the power outages because we'll see maybe steady times of freezing rain at times, and then also dealing with just the freezing drizzle, which will accumulate more quickly on everything because it's not hitting something and running off. And so that's kind of your hour by hour today and hour by hour tomorrow as we're in it for the long haul. Still dealing with the same type of setup. We've got that high to our north that's locking in the colder air. We've got a wave of low pressure riding along stalled out frontal boundary across the Gulf Coast. And look at the temperatures there by tomorrow morning, especially in the central part of the country. Single digits. So that's coming our way as we go into Tuesday, on top of all the cold air at the surface and that wave of low pressure bringing in moisture. We're also bringing in moisture from the Gulf, and that is going to be rich moisture. One thing that we should point out here is see this little cluster of higher water vapor, so higher moisture content. Could be some storms that can sometimes zap energy and take away from some of the higher amounts, so keep that in mind. We'll have to watch it as we get closer to the event. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and start our timing here. As we go through the evening, you can see that, that definitely does not start. That's also behind. But you can see here as we start to go towards the evening, maybe starting to see that little bit of a burst of snow or sleet as we go from 6 o'clock kind of to 8 o'clock. Notice, though, it transitions very quickly to the purple, and the purple is sleet. So sleet is going to be the predominant precip type as we go through the overnight hours tonight and into the morning hours tomorrow. Then we see that transition over to freezing rain at some point, either tomorrow morning, maybe in the afternoon. Models, again, kind of on disagreement on that. So these hourly updates, we're going to continue to give you the latest. As we get a change in the forecast, we're going to let you know immediately. So that's the advantage of watching us here on Plus. You're going to have hourly updates throughout the entire weekend and the duration of this event, and we're going to continue to keep you updated should anything change. And of course, we'll let you know on social media, and we'll keep our website updated as well. So see here where we start to break up a little bit. That's not necessarily good news. Breaks into precip. Their drier air, if you drop a sounding on that, it's still saturated, which means freezing drizzle. So even though we're not getting freezing rain, if we get periods of freezing drizzle, we'll actually start to see the ice totals go up a little bit, and we don't want to see the ice totals go up, we want to see them go down. So that's not necessarily something to root for, this dry slot. If we see a steady freezing rain the whole day, we'll still get some ice accumulation, but maybe not as much because it'll hit and kind of run off. Now the roads will be a mess, because that runs off and it collects into the streets. And so that's something to keep in mind. As we go through our Sunday, again, just the afternoon, the evening, we're just going to continue to see this steady freezing rain. Do you see how temperatures rise there? Don't necessarily buy that, because remember, the wedge is going to be in place, and models don't handle the wedge very well. So I think the cold air's going to be sticking around. We're not going to warm up very much through this event as we go towards the evening, and that'll be prolonged periods of freezing rain. Now, we could see rain, but as Brad and Tim talked about yesterday on the Weather Impact Show, is we're going to have, it doesn't matter. The damage will be done at this point. Trees will start to have already started to come down. Power outages have started to been knocked out. If we get rain, that's just going to add to a mess, because then temperatures drop below freezing, and that could freeze on roadways, especially if we already have ice on there. So, and then the second front comes through into Monday. That's an Arctic front, and that's going to drive some very, very cold air. So what are we thinking forecast-wise? Because I know many of you want to know that, especially where you live, right? This is still our thinking right now. So the half inch, it's still going to be possible for parts of our viewing area, especially the southern portion. So Montgomery County, Randolph County, Davidson County, parts of Alamance County, you need to be prepared to see significant icing that could knock out power, and could knock out power potentially for days, because again, power crews are going to do their best to get you restored, but we have the whole state getting hit very hard with potentially very significant ice storm, especially back towards the Charlotte area, up towards the Triangle, although maybe the Triangle is starting to trend away from that. But nonetheless, we're going to see a significant ice storm in parts of the state, and so that's where the power crews are going to be working to get the more populous areas up and running, and then they'll be working on us as well. But remember, materials are going to be stretched thin. Give grace to our power crews. They're out there in the worst of it, trying to get our power restored, and we're very thankful for them to be here. And thankful for all the power crews that came in from outside the state and the country. We have power crews here from Canada, and they're all ready. They're lined up. They're ready to help us. And they just we have to wait for the event to go through and see what happens from this. Regardless, if you see a half inch, if you see a quarter inch, yes, half inch, that's crippling, it's horrible. But if we're talking a quarter inch of ice on trees, you start seeing damage. You need to anticipate that. Expect to see power outages across the entire viewing area. It is not just going to be the southern portion that gets hit with the ice. We're going to get hit across the Triad proper. We're talking Winston-Salem, Greensboro, High Point. That's Triad proper when I say that. But over to Burlington, down to Asheboro, over to Lexington, up to Reidsville, we're all going to see ice from this. And it's going to be bad. I mean, it's going to be dangerous to be on the roads. We're going to have sleet potentially. If we have more sleet, that's going to be more sleet and then covered in a layer of ice. Or we're going to have a little bit of sleet and then a whole lot of ice. Either way, it's going to be dangerous as we go into the day tomorrow. So I don't want you thinking, oh, it's not going to be so bad as we go into the day tomorrow. It's just ice. It's not just ice. Ice is worse than snow. I would rather have a snowstorm. 8 inches of snow. Yes, that can cause its problems, but thankfully it's not ice. Ice is dangerous. I don't care how good of a driver you are, you can't drive on ice. All of the friction between your tires and the road is disrupted by a layer of ice, and ice is very slippery and can cause accidents very quickly if you underestimate its power. So best to stay off the roads tomorrow. Again, look at this. 1/4 inch of ice can break tree limbs, already causing power outages, and of course you get into catastrophic icing when you're talking 1/2 inch or more, which is possible for parts of the state. Again, there will be long-term power outages possible. You need to anticipate this. Widespread tree damage. Tim talked about the other day, we could lose as many trees as we typically see maybe with a hurricane coming through across the state. So this is going to be massive tree damage, dangerous travel on roads, and that's going to last not just this weekend but into next week. So you can see those power outages are going to start going up as soon as we start getting the freezing rain. Initially starting as a burst of snow to sleet through the overnight hours, and then we'll see that transition over to freezing rain. Dangerous travel is expected as we go through 6 a.m. Sunday all the way through Monday. It's going to be hazardous travel tonight. Just don't do it. Tomorrow, really don't do it. Power outages are going to start ramping up as we start piling up the ice. It'll take some time, probably starting around tomorrow afternoon into the evening. We're going to start to see power outages impacting a good portion of the state. And again, just the hazard itself, if we look at that winter storm severity index, that impact, we are going to see considerable disruptions across parts of the Triad. This actually just got updated. So you can see now Greensboro into Winston-Salem, Alamance County, Randolph County, Davidson County. Considerable disruptions are expected. And that's either going to be from an increase in sleet that they're seeing or an increase in ice, which is the most likely problem. Substantial disruptions will be seen in the mountains because they could see quite a bit of icing in that, unfortunately. And then you can see down to Charlotte, still seeing the potential for considerable disruptions north of the city, and Charlotte could be seeing some impacts there as well. It's not going to be good for the state. We are going to see impacts. You will have disruptions to your daily life. Your commute will be very dangerous on Monday. So we got to take this serious. And then to top it all off, of course, we're going to be dealing with temperatures on our Tuesday dropping into the single digits, which is not to be punny there, but the icing on the cake. We're talking falling into the single digits. You can see temperatures there on Tuesday struggling to get to around 34 degrees. And 37 is the highest it's going to be this week. It's going to be cold. It's going to be very hard to melt off all of that sleet and slush and snow, and if we get any snow, and then the ice. Ice is very hard to melt, especially as it gets thicker and thicker and thicker. So if you've got multiple tenths of inches on the road and accreted on everything, we need sunshine. We'll have that. But we're going to see overnight lows fall into the teens again. And so that means refreezing every single night, black ice problems every single morning, and that probably is going to continue at least for the next week. So you do need to be prepared. So these are the quick takeaways. You need to be prepared for a long-lasting winter storm. It'll start up at about 6 tonight. We'll see that brief burst of snow to